Hi there, it's Nicole for Simon Says Stamp, and today I am excited to share an Easter card idea with you. This is very similar to a card I created at the end of November that was a Christmas themed card where I used a frame die that's a decorative frame die and then masked some images inside of that and did some inking for the background and then Copic coloring. And I wanted to try it for another holiday. So this is going to be an Easter card. I die cut my frame using the Flowing Vine Collage. Simon has some amazing frames like this that are going to instantly add interest to a framed up piece. I really wanted it to look kind of foresty, like you're looking through this greenery into this little scene. That's really where I'm going with this whole idea. Very, very similar to my Christmas card. Like I said, I think good designs can really be used across the board, and I think it's one of those good things to show how you can really make the most of a good design. So if you have created a card that you really love for, let's say, Christmas, like I did, and you want to implement that, there is almost always dies and stamps that are going to work for other holidays and occasions. And it's just one of my very favorite things about card making is taking something and making it new with maybe some different supplies. So I'm using the Flowing Vine Collage because to me this definitely said more of a spring type of feel to it. Die cut that right from the center of a 4 by 5¼ inch piece of smooth white cardstock. I like to keep mine pretty plain. I do think on my Christmas card, I did a little bit of coloring to some of the vines and things. I think that would work here as well. Part of the reason I kept it white, for me, white is just very clean and fresh and definitely speaks to that springtime feel that I was going for. But I think this would be really cool with a little bit of inking or coloring on the vines as well, depending on what kind of images and what kind of inking you do. I was afraid that if I colored these in green, they would either clash with the colors of ink I'm going to be using, or it just wouldn't blend very well, or it'd get lost into the design. So the white really stands out. I stamped the bunny first. I'm using my vine collage. I die cut that first because it's going to help guide where I stamp the bunny in the bucket and the little birdhouse from the Springtime Critters stamp set. I believe this is from last year's release. I never actually got a chance to use it, so I was really excited to break this out. Maybe you guys have this in your stash as well. You want to stamp the image that's going to be on the foreground first. So in this case, that's the bunny. I masked him with some masking paper. Then I stamped the birdhouse. And finally, we're going to finish with an Easter egg from this. I kept trying to implement one of the birds from this Springtime Critters stamp set because I absolutely love them. I even went so far as to stamp one on my frame, and I did not like it at all. It took away from the overall design, I felt. So not this time. That does happen. Sometimes less is more. I tend to go with the theory more is more, but I think it really is less is more. So once I have my 3 images masked, the birdhouse, the bunny in the bucket, and the egg, I'm going to start inking. And I'm kind of going very gentle, and I'm using Distress Oxide inks. All of these images are stamped on Neenah smooth white cardstock, and Distress inks just don't blend very great on this cardstock, I have found, or I am not very good at it. But Distress Oxides do, which makes me so excited. And I went with kind of a fresh, fun springtime color for my background with Lucky Clover and Cracked Pistachio. I love how these two colors look together, and to me, they're very springy and green and just really have that feel I was going for. Once my inking's done, I can go ahead and remove my masks. And that reveals my little images here, except that I didn't do a very good job cutting them because I left kind of a funky little line there. So I'm really carefully going in with Lucky Clover and just adding a little bit of ink. I will do a tiny bit of coloring. A lot of this will not be seen because we're going to be putting that frame over it, but I want it to look as clean and nice as possible. I am going to go ahead and color in my birdhouse first. I don't know why I didn't go with the bunny. I almost always go with my critter first. I knew what colors I was going to use. I even had them pulled out, but I went with the birdhouse first. A lot of the birdhouse is hidden, but I colored it all in. You might also notice that I did not mask the flower. I realized when I kind of laid my frame over it, you're not really going to see much of the flower. It's so teeny tiny. I just felt like it was something that didn't need to be done to add to the design of the card, if that makes sense. So I just kind of ignored the flower there. I started with E53, 53, 55, and 57 for my birdhouse. And I'm just going to do the birdhouse and the stand. I'm not going to do the roof. I definitely think I want to add a color there to kind of help with, there's a lot of green, there's a lot of neutrals, and I feel like I need some more springy colors. So I'm going to hold off on the roof for now and move on to the bunny, which I'm coloring with some warm grays, warm gray 00, 135, and R00 for the insides of the ears and the cheeks. I love these colors together. I'm a huge fan of warm grays for critters, and I'm going to just keep working those colors till I get a nice seamless blend. Do a little dot detailing to really give him some fun character. He is the focal point of the whole card. This is an Easter card. The greeting I'm going to be using for this card is going to read, "Some bunny loves you." And so I really wanted him to shine. Next, the bucket is a perfect place to pull in your pastel spring colors. So we're going to have this peachy pink stripe, a green stripe. Even though there's a lot of green in the background, I really felt like I needed to pull that green into the bucket. And then yellow along the bottom is really going to help make this pop. The addition of yellow just always gives a nice sunshiny feel, I feel like. So just a tiny little bit here. The bucket handle will go back with my peachy pinks. That's R000, 11, and 32. The greens are G000, 00, and 02. And the yellows are Y00, or pardon me, Y11 and Y08. And then G17 is a little bit darker green that I'm going to color in that grass along the bottom edge to just darken it up. You're not really going to see a lot of this once we get the frame in place. It's just more the illusion. Now, I felt like the egg needed some different colors. So we're going to do some light peachy orange here and purple for the egg with YR00 and 02, and then B60, 63, and 66 for the purples. The 60 you probably don't need. It ended up being a little too light. I really kind of went back over everything with B63, but I wanted to leave that in there because you are seeing me use it. I don't think it really gave enough color, so I would just go with B63 and 66. I decided to pull in some more of that peachy pink, and so the roof on the birdhouse is going to be that. We're only going to be seeing a tiny touch of this in the finished card, but I think that little pop of color up high really ties it all in together nicely. Then the heart cutout in the birdhouse, I want it to be dark, like you're looking through into the birdhouse, and it's definitely dark inside there. I'm going to pull in some of the E49. Now, I decided to pull in a little bit more dark E49 in the rest of my card, and look at that. My marker splotched. I haven't used E49 in a while. Obviously, I filled it at some point, and it kind of made a mess. So what I did was I let that dry. I pushed the ink back with my colorless blender, and then I kind of colored around it and disguised it. It's really going to be hidden, so I didn't worry about it too much, but I was a little bit bummed that my marker kind of dripped a little bit. So I must have overfilled it. Be really careful. A scale is super helpful if you're refilling your Copic markers, because sometimes that happens. Then, before I put my frame over my background, you probably saw me using a black jelly roll pen there on the eyes. I'm going to let that dry before I go back and add the white highlights back in. I'm going to add some decorative touches to each stripe on my bucket. First, I've got some polka dots. Then I did a stripe one way, And then I'm going to do another stripe another way. And then I decided to go back to my green stripe and make that a plaid instead. I'm a huge fan of white pin details for my cards. I think they add a lot to a design. They really add a ton of interest and make images pop. So I'm even going to go in, add some little highlights and details to different areas on my bunny, the egg, the birdhouse. We'll even add some polka dots to the roof of the birdhouse. The little inside heart, we'll add some highlights there. Even though a lot of the polka dots are going to get covered up, for me it's a lot easier to just color in the whole thing. Maybe you don't want to frame it up. You could definitely kind of use this as is, stamp some fun greetings up there in that open area. If you weren't framing this up, I think one of the flying bird from the Springtime Critters stamp set would be awesome. Stamped there up above, masked, and then colored in. I think that would be really fun as well. Added those white highlights back into the eyes once the black is dry. And then I'm taking a scrap of Simon Says Stamp Smoke cardstock, stamping a greeting from the Easter Greetings stamp set that reads "Some Bunny Loves You," with Versamark ink, heat embossing with white embossing powder, and then trimming this into a thin strip. You probably see me do this with black cardstock a lot. I love the look of black cardstock, but I think for an Easter card, it doesn't work. And the gray is nice and light. You can still read the greeting, but it just softens the look a little bit. I'm going to put some foam adhesive around all four sides of my panel to pop this up. You wouldn't have to do this. You could adhere it directly over the background, but I think the little bit of dimension just helps make it appear that you're looking through this vine into this little scene. Next, I need to figure out right where I want to put my greeting. I'll go ahead and peel off all my backing and pop this over my background first. And then I can decide. I kind of wanted to offset it maybe, and it just was not working. So I ended up centering it. I'm a huge fan of centering my greetings. I would say probably 90% of the time I center my greetings. So I went ahead and did this here. And then to tie it all together and add just a little bit more interest, I'm going to take Nuvo crystal drops in translucent colors, rosewater, lemon, light yellow, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name at the moment, and key lime. And I'm going to add little drops all the way around my design on the white frame. These three, they're translucent, so they're going to be very light, but they still have a hint of color to them. And we're just going to go around the whole thing and add color, and then take Morning Dew and add those directly over the background. Thanks for joining me today for this Easter masked scene card featuring Simon Says Stamps and Dies. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Simon Says that you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.